Hello, this is Daryl here, sending love as always. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to say if you like this interview, you can check our website for companion workbooks, action guides, tools, checklists, templates, and show notes with links for everything mentioned on the call. Just visit bestbusinesscoach.ca. That's best, B-E-S-T, businesscoach.ca. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by paid ads gangster and founder of BusinessNet, Ben Simkin. Ben got his start early in business, launching a tech company at the age of 20 years old and selling it in his mid 20s for $1.2 million. He then went on to launch his marketing agency in 2005. When Facebook began advertising, he recognized its huge potential, and Ben was one of the very first advertisers on Facebook, making him one of the very few people who have more than a decade of experience with Facebook ads. Fast forward to today, Ben is recognized by the Huffington Post as the world's #1 Facebook marketer. He's been featured in Forbes, Inc. magazine, and interviewed by CNBC for having generated well over $1 billion in sales using Facebook. In 2018, Facebook Inc. bestowed VIP advertising status to Ben's marketing agency. His clients include Kerwin Ray, AJ Abraham, and companies such as Canterbury. Ben has worked with celebrities all over the world, and today he is here to help us all get up to speed on how to do Facebook and Instagram marketing to grow our sales. So, Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Daryl. It's a pleasure being on this podcast with you. It's been long overdue.
Yeah. We've had to get you back sooner than later. Now, I want to talk. Some of us that don't know your story. Can you talk about the early days of online paid advertising? Like, has it changed a lot? What was it like when you first got started? And how did you even
Yeah.
get started?
How did I get started? What's changed? Well, I had my tech company that I was doing, that I was running and growing. And before I sold it, one of my clients, this is around 2005, 2004, one of my clients told me, he said, I want to get a website. Everyone's getting websites these days and I want to do online marketing. I was like, well, I don't really know much about it, but I'll do it. Well, I didn't say that. I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's do the online marketing stuff, thinking that I could go and find an expert, pay them, and then put a little bit of margin on top and, sell it to my client. So I did. I went and found somebody who could help me. And then I got the gig. I signed the client up for the online marketing. And then I hit the guy up who was going to do it all for me. And he said, oh, I can't do it anymore because I just got a job with the government. So I don't have any time. So I was like, oh, well, what do I do now? Since I got the money in the bank, I don't want to give it back. So I decided to start figuring it out myself. Going back to kind of give you some point of reference, when I was 13, I got my first computer. It was a little secondhand 486 computer. And I was so intrigued by this device. I was like, I want to learn how this thing works. And I actually went to the school library and got every single textbook you could find on anything to do with computers. And by the age of 16, I taught myself 5 programming languages.
Wow.
I was computer hacking. I was, doing all that kind of stuff. And the kind of point I'm trying to make is like, I've kind of used that with everything in my life. I've said, well, I figured out how to do computers like on my own, just by reading textbooks. Like there's nothing that I can't figure out by getting the right information, getting the right advice, reading the right books. There's nothing that I can't figure out. So I kind of go into that mentality where it's like, well, I want to learn how to do online marketing. So I'm going to just go down that rabbit hole and figure all this stuff out. And that first client, we ended up making $3 million in revenue for within the first 3 months. And that was when it was like this light bulb moment for me was like, wow, this online marketing stuff is amazing. And that was when I was hooked. And then I ended up selling my company that I had and started a marketing agency called BusinessNet around that same time. And so that was really the journey. But you go into like what it was like. There was no Facebook. There was no Google AdWords was kind of like primitive, if at all. What I had to do was I would find these list brokers who would rent you an email list of say 10,000 people, and you could choose by demographics. So I'd say, I want a list of everyone in Sydney who's between the ages of 30 and 45 years old. Then I would email out an offer, like an email offer to those people and get the sales that way. Now, the problem with that was we always ran out of lists. So we'd run these campaigns. We get, sending out to say 30,000 people over the course of 2 or 3 months, get the sales in. Then we'd run out of emails to send to. So we'd have to stop, wait, and then go back to the start of the list again after a month or two. So it was really up and down in those times. And that kind of leads into like the Facebook thing is when Facebook announced approximately 2009, they said, we're going to open up an ads platform where you can target people based on demographics and interests and things like that. I was like, oh man, this is exactly like what I'm doing now. Only I'm not going to run out of names ever. So that's why I jumped on straight away. And it's been for a decade now.
Now, how is this? Is the strategy similar? How do the strategies differ? Or how do they differ?
How do they differ? Well, it goes back to this understanding. If you can go through the lens of what is the formula for successful marketing, and the formula is T plus O plus F, which stands for target, offer, message. So putting the right offer in front of the right target with the right message. So you can look at that lens. You can say, well, Facebook, I can get in front of the right target. I can give them the right offer, and I can use the right message or copy to get them in, right? So target, offer, message. So it was the same thing, like email, get the right target. But it's better than that now because with Facebook, you not only can target demographic, but you could target psychographics as well. And on top of that, in the last, what is it now, to 20, so last 4 years, since the AI platform has been installed into Facebook, now you can target people based on what they're going to buy next week, which is amazing.
Now that kind of sounds similar to Google AdWords and keyword marketing. Like if you use a keyword planner and you find a keyword that's going to have, 5,000, 50,000 people, it says on average monthly searches, that's like fresh churn. That's fresh people entering the market, or at least entering that state of mind kind of month after month after month. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, but the thing is with Facebook now is that Facebook is so advanced and has so much data sources feeding into it, billions of data points feeding into it about every single user, and the relationship between each user and the relationship between how, it can profile you. It knows that Facebook knows so much about you. Like it knows that sort of right leaning politics. It knows that I like to drink a lot of coffee. It knows that I hang out with specific friends who have specific interests in marketing and business. It knows everything, and it can profile not just on data, but based on behavioral analysis. And then what it can do with that is it can pretty much predict at a higher probability level what you are going to buy in the short-term future. Like it knows that, hey, you've been running hundreds of miles for, whatever, but it knows if you're going to buy a new pair of shoes, a new car, like if it knows you're about to get engaged, even if you don't know you're about to get engaged, it knows that, for example.
That's pretty wild. So, how does somebody listening to this take advantage of that? It sounds like an incredibly powerful tool, but just because you have an expert tool doesn't mean you know how to use it expertly. So, what would you
Yeah.
recommend to people just getting started?
Well, I think getting started, you really got to just cut away from, don't get blinded by the tech. Go back to this thing as well. I did consultation calls through my mastermind, and I had one yesterday. He was like, how do I sell my products? And I'm like, well, who's the target market? Find out who's the target market. I'm not just talking about age and gender, who they are situationally right now. Your target, well, I'll give you an example right now because we're in the middle of the pandemic. Your target market has changed. The person hasn't changed, but the situation and context has. So now all of a sudden I've got to rethink, well, what are they doing right now? What behaviors are they exhibiting right now? What are they worried about right now? What are their goals right now? Like, what are those psychographical kind of third dimensional things about your target market that you need to know so that you can really understand them, create an offer that matches that person. As Robert Collier, the great Robert Collier said, you have to meet them
Where they
you have
are.
to meet
Meet them where they are. The
where they
Robert
are.
Collier letter book. It's a meaty read. I have a copy of that back in Canada. Took me forever to get through it, but it's a great book to have. It's just a swipe
That,
file for old school.
that is my favorite marketing book of all time.
It's awesome.
That book is incredible.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about, he generated over $200 million in sales during the Great Depression.
Yeah. Back when that was a lot of money.
There was no money. This is the Great Depression. He generated $200 million,
Yeah.
which is so much money.
Yep.
So you can learn from him and apply those techniques and principles to your Facebook ads.
I love it. So to get started, you need to identify your target, your offer, and then the message you want to give them. Now, what about testing? Because a lot of people, when they look at like online advertising, a lot of people are getting their accounts blocked. I mean, we all know that marketing is a process of iteration. You always want to put your best foot forward, but ultimately we can't know. Facebook might know what Facebook might be able to predict the actions people take, but we don't know which ad's going to be the home run. So we have to test different things. And a lot of people have had issues with getting their accounts banned and blocked and that sort of thing. And what do you, can you speak to that? In some ways, I know at least this isn't maybe the newbie. I know some people that have been frustrated trying to get going because they're just doing testing and all of a sudden their accounts get slammed and shut down and they've got no recourse. They've tried
Yeah,
chatting, all that. Yeah.
it's just like this thing. It's like we always get this thing because I'm VIP with Facebook. I can actually call them up and talk to the high level people there because I'm in the top 2% of advertisers, of all advertisers, not just agencies, but all advertisers. So I get special privileges. And people always come to me from, people from the public or community or business people. Hey, I've been banned. I'm like, well, what did you do wrong? Oh, nothing. I didn't do anything wrong, but it's fine. They do something wrong. Like, did you read the terms of service? Have you read what the rules are? Oh no, I didn't,
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys, like you got to play by the rules.
So what do you recommend anybody that's in that situation now? They made the mistake.
Read
They wanted to get action
them.
going. What do they do?
Well, they need to read the terms of service before they go and violate any policies.
Right. Right, right. Okay. All right. So the solution is, I mean, that's kind of like I remember asking one of my, well, I used to, I haven't trained jujitsu in years, but I remember I used to always get caught in triangle chokes. And I remember asking my teacher
Yeah.
at the time, how do I get out of it? He said, don't get put into it. And that was really, that was really irritating to me at the time because I'm like, well, obviously, but I didn't understand the wisdom of what he had said. So it sounds like you're giving the same advice. I'm like, what do you do if you have a banned account? You're like, don't have a banned account. Well, obviously, but come on.
Guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, what do you have to say?
I don't know.
Don't- don't-
Does somebody need at that point? I guess it sounds like they need to deal with an expert. They made a mistake. They
They
got shut
down.
down. They have to.
If you're working with me as a client, I can go into bat for you to Facebook. I can actually, present the case for you if you're a client. But if you're some guy off the street, you send slides into my DMs and says, "Hey man, can you help me?" I'm like, "What's in it for me?" Man?
Well, okay, okay. So, all right, so let's talk. Let's get dive into some. So, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see your clients and other entrepreneurs making? When people come, I know, like again, it's. I always find that no matter who they are, anytime I work with someone, there's always a fundamental that's weak or one of the fundamentals that's missing. And for what are the ones that you're seeing when you work with a new client or another entrepreneur? What are kind of the fundamentals that you always see people needing to work on the most?
Man, it's so many, but they're just people are just not driven as much as they should be driven.
Mm,
There's no sense of urgency. They don't get things done quickly. They give themselves, like I remember, like it was a little while ago, we were creating a whole new funnel marketing campaign website. We had it done in a matter of like 2 weeks. We had everything done. We had it all launched. I was speaking to someone else and they were saying, "Oh yeah, it's been 3 months. I still haven't got my website finished." I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, do you realize that you're dying every minute of the day?"
that's right.
Like get shit done, man. Like get it done quickly.
Yeah.
That's one of them. The other ones are taking money out of the business. Like people are drawing too much money out of their business when they should be reinvesting it either into their own business or into other asset classes. This whole thing like that, they were working 20 hours a day or 15 hours a day for 3 years. And they're like, they're hustling and they go, well, I just made a couple of $100,000. I'm going to go buy a Ferrari because I deserve it. You don't fucking deserve it. Like you don't deserve it. Just put it back in the money and reinvest it.
Mhm, mhm,
You know,
mhm.
I worked for my first 8 years in business. I worked 20 hours a day. So, and the other thing is like you go on these ClickFunnels groups and they're like, I've been trying to get ClickFunnels to work for 3 months and I haven't got successful yet. And it's like, well, okay, like, what? How long did it take you to walk?
Yeah, I think that that's something that people really miss out on. I'm a huge believer in daily disciplines and managing your daily 24 hours and the habits and routines. I think that's such a critical component. Like, it's so ironic, but it's like the by what am I trying to say? Who you are when like more money won't solve your problem. You have to fix your flaws in your daily focus and your daily routine, like you said, in your sense of urgency now. Because it's like if I could wave some magic wand and boom, your website's done. But you still have this, like you still are slow to get things done. You still don't have a proper team in place. All these things, like it's just going to trip you up further down the road. It's almost like that leaning tower of Pisa. Like if you are building a building and it's off by a degree, the building's leaning slightly, you're not going to notice it when you're only on the first, second, third floor. But as you start getting to the 10th floor, 15th floor, as you start trying to scale up, all of a sudden that's where all the weak points come out. And that's where you really have to get focused on the fundamentals. And it all starts, in my opinion, with
Absolutely.
daily routine, your habits, and where you're investing your time. I mean, I almost think of my time like dollars. And it's like when I wake up in the morning, I've got, I'm going to sleep, we'll say 8 hours. So that's 16 hours of the day. I have $16 and I could put $1 into my health. I could put $3 into my health. I could put $1 into the relationships that matter, or I could put $5 into watching TV,
Yeah.
and
No,
I that
I love that. That's really good. I like that way you see. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's really nice, man.
well, I mean, that's what you say because it's so funny because it's like the irony is like the people who can make money are often the ones that can have access to a lot of credit, but they don't need it because they know how to make the money. But the people who have no money, they need the credit, but they don't have it because they don't like they need it. And it's the underlying key, the common denominator is like need, want, or waste not, want not. And so the people that develop the skill, you always see all sorts of rich people that they're not driving flashy cars. They're not trying to puff themselves up. Again, using a martial arts analogy, I know when you go to train at another dojo or another guy's gym and you ask someone how long you've been training, the experienced people are downplaying their experience and the novices are puffing themselves up. The novice is like, yeah, I've been training for 2.5 years, man. I'm a killer. And the guy that's been doing it for 12 years, he's like, I've been training for a while. Like he's very humble and downplaying it. And it's that skill set. It's that humble discipline that you're about the journey, not about the destination. And I think that's where you're talking about being more driven, having
Yeah.
a
No,
sense of urgency.
I think that's good. I think you need to be down to earth. I think that the people who don't have money, probably the people that you see who are struggling are doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it for validation. They're doing it because they're insecure about themselves. They're doing it because they want to look good in front of their peers. Like if you're in it to gain the approval of your peers, you're doing it wrong. You should be gaining the approval of your clients and your customers. That's where you should be focusing. Like, how can I serve my clients better? How can I deliver more value to my customers and clients? Love the product and they love me and they love my company.
Yeah.
If you're in these peer groups where it's like, oh, I've got a 2 Comic Club award. Like, who cares? Like, tell me how you've been able to add a lot of value to your client, and I'll respect you from that.
I think that speaks to something that's even, again, we're talking about not the superficial, but the practical. I think this kind of talks about how business is really an act of servitude and that there's many forms of wealth and money on its own is inert. It has no meaning. It's like a lump of gold is just a lump of gold. The meaning is how you use it. And so I think what you're trying to say is there's more than just cash as a measure for success. And that if even right now we're in a global pandemic, economies are being hurt, like a lot of people aren't liquid right now. And all of a sudden they're finding out that there are other resources that they either have or have not developed. And a huge part of that is, like you said, like taking care of people, being there. If you are committed to helping someone else and making them look good, they're going to support you in turn. And this is where I think, like you said, it's not just about the money. A lot of people, it's very selfish. They want to make all this money and sit on the beach and drink their cocktail. And I know you've probably done it. I know I've done that. I made a shit ton of money and did that. But it's like now you want meaning in your life. Like it's fun for a week, but now, after drinking at 7 a.m. when you wake up in the morning, you start wanting more meaning and significance from your life. And I think that's, again, it kind of comes back to what are the goals and why are you driven? And, what are your reasons for
Absolutely.
doing it?
And it's true. And I think people are trying to chase money because I think it's going to bring them happiness where, they've got to realize that happiness was inside of them the whole time. They
Mm,
haven't realized that. And I've come to the conclusion of a while ago, you know, breaking it down because I'm a systems guy. Like I want to break things down into understandable ideas, tangible ideas. And I was thinking, how does happiness, the elements of happiness are self-expression, creativity, and serving others. That's all there is.
yep. That's it. Everything else is just keeping score.
That's it.
That's right.
If you don't have those three things and you got $10 million in the bank, you'll be unhappy. You
Yep.
will be. You
Yep.
need to be in a position where you can serve others, where you can self-express, whether it's through art or music or through some other way of expressing your unique talents and your unique self and the creativity that comes along with that.
I love it.
Those three elements.
So now let's say I've got a way that I want to serve. I've got a target problem that I'm trying to solve for people, or a target market that I want to help and I want to serve. So I got my target, I got my offer, I got my message, but right now I'm doing it manually. I'm manually messaging people on LinkedIn or whatever that is, and I'm generating leads. How do I scale that? How do I take that, my manual process, and turn it into a semi-automated marketing system and scale it?
Yeah. So if you really understand your target market and you've got an offer that your marketplace, that your target wants, that's an irresistible offer to them, then you are like 80% of the way there. If you've got those two elements down pat, then you want to go on Facebook ads and run some ads and target the right people with your offer, either whether it's through a landing page, a funnel, through a message, through a message, what it is, whatever method you want to use. It's probably not that relevant compared to having the right target, the right offer. If you've got that down pat, if you jump on Facebook ads, you don't know who your target is, you don't have a great offer that they want, you're going to fail. So you need to have those two things in place before you even think about jumping on Facebook ads
You
manager.
might still make it work, but you're going to spend a lot more in time and money in testing.
Yeah, you're not going to make it work. You're not going to make it work. I use this analogy where let's just say that I was able to come into some, 100 pair of Nike shoes, top quality, brand new shoes. They fell off the back of a truck. Don't ask me how I got them, but I got them for free, and they're $150 shoes. And I go to the retirement home to cash in, and I say, I've got these brand new Nike shoes in all different colors, different sizes. Would you like to buy some? Nobody at the retirement home buys them, right?
Right. They
They're
don't
not
know what
buying.
Jordans are. They don't. They don't.
They're not buying them. Right? So I in my distress, I get depressed. I get really, really blind drunk because I'm so depressed that I can't make any money because nobody's buying my shoes. And I wake up the next morning, people are poking me and try to wake me up and yelling at me, say, wake up, son. And I find myself, I've actually landed on the fields of where the runners club, the joggers club people meet up every Saturday morning. And my boots open and they're all asking me, how much are these shoes? How much are these shoes? I'm like, $20 each. Like, leave me alone. I've got a hangover. And I sell out all of my shoes within 10 minutes. Now, earlier the day before, I was so articulate. I presented well. I gave a really good sales pitch, but nobody bought. But the next morning I was so hungover, I couldn't even talk and communicate properly. I looked so disgusting. I smelled terrible, but I sold out within 10 minutes. What was the difference?
The target audience, the offer.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you a question then. Do you feel people change products too frequently, and that they need to test their offers and maybe their ads and their targeting more? Or do you, right? Like, I guess I'm asking a leading question, and I want you to say it. I'm trying to get you to say it, but I feel like it's something that I've even discovered myself. Is I've seen myself and other people think it's the product that's the problem versus the positioning and the marketing of the product.
Yeah,
Would
it's
you
not
agree
the
with that?
product.
Or
It's not the product. It's either the target or the offer. How you're presenting the product is the offer, or you going after trying to sell something. It's this fixed thing. Like you can go to the retirement home all day long and try and sell shoes. You might sell one pair every 6 weeks, but if you go to the right target, you're going to sell out instantly. Likewise with the offer, if I go to the retirement home and I sell, what do they want? Like dentures, I'm going to sell them out.
Mhm, mhm. So I think what we're telling people here is, figure out what your problem that you're going to solve is, and then spend a lot of time focusing on testing the targets and the offers, and just make sure the product is really, really good. But don't be one of these people that's testing 70 different products and you're doing one or two ads each. You should have one or two products that you're doing 70 different things to try to sell. Would you agree?
Exactly. 100%. Have
Now,
get
where
one
the
offer done. Get one offer working and profitable. Don't be doing this, running around trying to sell all different things.
Now, what's your input between the marriage between online and offline sales? Are you are we driving ads to sales pages and online order forms? Are you a big fan of phone sales? Like, what do you think are kind of the pillars of an effective sales and marketing system? We talked about having a target offer and a message. We talked about how to take that kind of one-on-one, messaging over LinkedIn, and how to pivot it to ads. But how do you scale it up? How do you really make sure that you're able to afford to advertise?
Oh, well, if you're starting a business, you should have some sort of investment capital. Like, what are you doing? Like, You know what I mean? So I think that you want to do all of the above. You want to, the best, I think it comes back down to the best salespeople are the ones, or the best marketers. The best marketing people are the ones that know how to sell face to face, the ones that know how to pound the pavement, press the flesh. You know, I come from a sales background where I was selling face to face, knee to knee, where, you know, the ability to put bread on the table required me to show up in person, be able to say words and express myself and give body language that was going to enable the complete stranger to trust me enough to give me money for something that I promised them to do in the future.
Mhm.
So if you can do that in person, you can do that online. So
Yeah.
yeah, very much.
I'd like your input because I know you're built with building teams. What about with the like, all right, so I know how to sell. I've got some ads going. How do I scale this up though? Like I'm able to generate some sales. I've got some rinky dink ad campaigns going. Even if I hired your agency and you were able to send me 2,000 people, how do we scale that up? Is there any advice or tips for that? Because I know a lot of people feel that sometimes to scale sales, they have to scale overhead and the team and, and people. And like, can you speak to that at all? Like,
Yeah. Okay.
how do you scale and limit adding too much complexity, I guess?
Okay. Well, if let's just say you figured out who your target is, you figured out what your offer is, you figured out what your optimal selling strategy is, you figured out what words and phrases you need to say and what words and phrases you need not to say when you're doing a sales pitch, or you've been able to get your online offer converting well. You want to be able to systemize, codify all of that so that you can hand it to the next person and say, do this in this order. Don't deviate from the plan. That works. That's proven, that I've proven personally. And then you're able to grow and scale one person at a time based on a systematic codified way of doing things. It's like that in anything. If you were to train in the military how to kill people, they're not just doing it randomly ad hoc on, here's a new idea. There's systematic ways to do that, or if you are a doctor, there's a proven systematic codified way for you to do heart surgery. They're not just saying, well, let's just wing it, man.
Right. There's a checklist in place. There's a step-by-step process. Something that's a complex dynamic process perhaps has been reduced to a series of multiple steps and if then questions.
Exactly. And it comes down to like granularly, even things to do with words that you say and words that you should never say to a prospect or client. Like it comes down to when you should call them. It comes down to when you should charge them. All of these different things. I'll give you an example. I figured out in my first company, the best time to send an invoice for my work was 3 days after I'd completed it. I figured out the best time to follow up a client was every 5 weeks, not every 7 weeks. So I systematically created and tested every single process, action, plan, word, email, phone call, and document that.
I love that. And that's a painstaking process that requires discipline and focus and effort over time. And
Well, if
for
you
I,
don't have those things, you don't have discipline, focus, and you don't have the ability to do this up, then you don't deserve to become successful. You do not deserve it. You should not get it, and I hope you don't get it.
Hmm, hmm. And that's why I guess that's where mentorship steps in. That's where working with an agency would step in, where you can now get support and guidance. You might not be running at that world class level, but you can build your team, some way, shape, or form. So now you have people on your team that are at that level and they can train you and they can fill those gaps.
Absolutely. Yes, you're not going to be good at everything. Maybe you're not good at doing the systemization codified. Maybe you're not good at getting up every morning at 5 a.m. Maybe you're not good enough to, maybe you don't have the skill sets to be able to turn up every day. Or maybe you don't have the skill set to be able to, dial 300 phone numbers a day. Maybe you don't have that and you don't have to. Don't change yourself in those areas. Just hire people who can do that for you, who have the ability and inclination and desire to do those things for you, that want to do it. Some people love to dial 300 phone calls a day. Maybe you don't. So then hire somebody who does.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. That's been a really big learning point for me over the last couple of years, I'd say, is I'm a coach and I'm a motivator. So I have this terrible habit of hiring people that I see potential in, but they aren't, like, my standards are too low for where people start at. everybody can
Mm.
grow and improve, but I allow people on my team and to work with me that maybe aren't where they should be to begin with. But I do it because I love to see people win and be there. But that's now I'm talking about like recognizing your strengths and skill sets. That's where I can't be the manager. Like I can't be the manager of that. I could be a coach, a leader, all that, but I'm not a good person for that because you still have to have a standard. You must be this good to be on my team, but we're all going to grow as opposed to being like, you're almost there. I believe in you, like a cheerleader. Like that's just not.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I need to have somebody who's highly capable, who can manage themselves, who has high standards for themselves, who is skilled, very highly skilled in what they do, disciplined. Because if I don't have those people, I'm not going to turn up, and I can't babysit them because I don't have the ability to get up every day and worry about what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
I'm too focused on creating the next idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The babysitting part, that was the liberating thing that I've been learning kind of the last few years. This is just my own personal thing. But let me ask you, what are some of the day-to-day habits that you feel have really helped you over the years on your path to success? I mean, we talked about one, having a daily sense of urgency and getting the work done. We also talked about testing a lot of different offers. But is there like in terms of a calendar, when you get up and schedule your day, are there certain times a day that you will like do you read every day? What are some of the habits that you felt have really been helpful?
Yeah, everyone's going to be different. There's actually a book that I want to give a shout out for called The Perfect Day Formula by Craig Ballantyne. I found that's probably the best book I've found on routines and schedules and how to get the most out of your day. It's called The Perfect Day Formula. That book was a real game changer for me, definitely. But in terms of like, what should you wake up at 5 a.m.? Should you wake up at 10 a.m.? Like, I don't think there's any real there's no one way of doing it. I think you can
Yeah.
just find
I'm
ways you want.
I'm curious what
Uh,
yours are. Like, do you have a time of day that you always schedule? Like, do you talk to your customers on a regular basis, or do you leave that to support? Are you reviewing everybody's work once a week, or do you feel like every day you need to sharpen your sword? So you always like you're always in someone's course or program or reading a book. Like, I'm curious about those kind of structural things to your life in terms of habit that you feel are compounding and getting you momentum over time.
yeah. Well, I mean, I read a lot. I study a lot. I also create a lot of my own content from my own individual research. So I'm not just consuming, I'm creating. So I think that's important for me. That is an important value for me to do, is to keep creating and helping other people and serving other people. In terms of, do I talk to customers every day? I don't, because I have a team, but it's still important to be in touch with your clients and the people you work with to understand what's going on out there, and seeing where everything's going, seeing what direction that the business should take and what things should change in the business. So that's important. Being healthy, meditating, those kinds of things I think help a lot.
Mm, got it. So, reading a lot, creating a lot of content, staying in touch. So this isn't like a business that you have no interest in and you're detached from. And, like you're involved, at least in yourself and directing in the things, the skill sets that you are applying to the businesses you're involved in. You're reading a lot, you're
Absolutely.
creating content on those industries a lot. It sounds like you're a big advocate for management by walking around, not necessarily waiting for a meeting to sink in, but you're available, you're in touch. You're not just waiting for someone to necessarily come to you. But, I mean, it's set up that you don't have to be, but you sounds like you're a fan of the management by walking around, and I ha
Absolutely. Definitely. Absolutely. And I think empowering people, like empowering your team. So I give everyone in my team absolute and final power over anything that they want to do. If they want to write a check for $10,000, they can do that. If they want to fire a client, we come together and say, we want to get rid of this client. If they don't want somebody on the team, then it's everything is a joint decision. So it's kind of like an almost democratic way of doing things where everyone has the same vested stake of being able to say this is the final word on things, if that kind of makes sense, and they can go and do whatever they want. Yeah. So that's something that has to come down to, do you trust your employees? If you don't, you shouldn't have them on your team anyway. If you trust them to be able to decide if they want to write a check for $10,000 tomorrow without telling you about it, if you don't have that confidence, then you probably shouldn't have them on your team anyway.
Mm, I love that. And it's just like some of this stuff is common sense, but it's almost like how our lives are influenced. Like if somebody just came in and, pushed you, you would do something. But if somebody comes to sit beside you and they nudge you a little bit, you kind of let it slide. When they nudge you again a little bit, you let it slide. They nudge you again a little bit, and you let it slide. And almost like that slippery slope. Like it sounds like a lot of the stuff, some of the stuff that you're saying, people think are common sense, but if the a lot of us are so close to our own projects, our own teams, that we're not objectively looking at it and seeing that kind of thing. So I appreciate you putting it out there. How do you feel about developing a culture? How important is a culture to a company team, and how do you develop culture?
That's a tough one. I don't know if I could actually codify that. I mean, we have a great culture in the company. I think it just comes down to this projection reflection thing. Like, if you want to be trusted, be trusting. If you want to, it's whatever you send out to the universe comes back to you. If you want, if you want to be respected, be respecting. Like all of these whatever you want in your culture, you have to send out first, and then it'll come back to you.
I love that emphasis on personal accountability. That
Project
comes back
It's
to the
projection and reflection. If you want somebody to be confident in you, have confidence. Like all these kinds of things. It's a
Mhm.
mirror. It's a mirror.
I love it. I love it because it puts the onus on you. Because a lot of people, I mean, this is there's a good. We're talking about books. Psycho-Cybernetics was a book that was written, I guess, by this plastic surgeon that kind of discovered the self identity that we had.
Yeah.
And because people were getting plastic surgery to solve things, like there was a guy who thought he sucked at sales because his nose was really big and ugly, and it thought it was distracting. So they got it fixed, but then it didn't solve the problem for him in his life. He still had that psychological
He's for
hang
still
up.
self at the same person. Exactly right.
Right.
Self identity, self image is like one of the most important things. I had a consultation recently with a business owner, and I said, you should go after these retail association companies and get your product into those really large corporations. And he said, well, I always feel really funny about approaching those people because of, it's just, little old me. And I'm like, no, you're the CEO. You're like, you own the third largest manufacturer of your product in the country. Like, why do you see yourself as like just some other dude? You have to help that self image that you're a CEO and that you have something to offer the world. So self image is really important.
The personal development, that working on yourself, your skill. I just love that because I feel like that's kind of the underlying theme of all this. Like you have to manage your time in a day. You have to manage yourself. You can't expect somebody else to do something if you can do it. And even if you're not, like you said, you don't have to be the person that loves dialing 300 times, but you have to have it documented on how to do it in a way that's articulated that you could do it. If you had, you may not get the best results in your team, but you've made it simple. I mean, that's how McDonald's made a multi-billion-dollar company out of hiring teenagers with low education and no skills, and they just made it really simple to codify these systems and put someone in place. I know if anyone here is a fan of the E-Myth, they're a big fan of saying people don't fail, your systems do. That
Absolutely.
that and that's a big, and
Yeah.
it's just refining that out and that
Right.
managing yourself.
And Dr. Goldratt, in his book, I think it's the theory of constraints, talks about if there's a conflict, it's not a people's conflict, it's a procedural systems conflict.
Mm,
If something goes wrong in the business, there's a system or policy that is at odds with another system or policy.
right, right. Yeah, that was the goal. Who was the author of that?
Talks to Eli Goldratt.
That's right. Yeah, I talked about the theory of constraints. So,
Absolutely.
but I mean, you give it so much value. People probably want to try to listen to this a couple of times if they can. Now, I want to ask about what's going on right now, and are things changing on a tactical level in terms of what's working online and what isn't? Where should people be focused right now? Where do you see things going in the next year to 2 years based on what you're seeing happening right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things going on. Is there money to be made right now? Absolutely. You have to think about this. You don't want to panic and you don't want to assume that nobody's buying. There's a couple of kind of underlying principles here that, as we go into a recession or a depression, whatever the hell it's going to be, it's not an evaporation of wealth, it's a transference of wealth. And likewise, if somebody's, if all these people are losing their jobs, those jobs are just going to be transferred into other industries, other businesses, other areas. The job doesn't disappear. It just gets transferred somewhere else in the economy. So think about those ideas that there's no evaporation of jobs and wealth. It's just being transferred somewhere else. And you need to go and find where it's going. And so you can be there, you know? And what is that thing? What is the thing about luck of being prepared? Is the
The
thing
harder
where,
I work, the luckier I get.
yeah, it is, but it's also that luck equals opportunity plus preparedness. If you're prepared and you meet the opportunity, then you get lucky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The will to win is the will to prepare. And I feel like it's been almost 10 years now where it seems like every year if not all, a handful of the top 5 to 10 in-demand jobs didn't exist the year before. Like that's the world that we're in right now. This is the world our kids are growing up in, where your business is competing with a kid, a teenager in their parents' basement on a laptop on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
And all the jobs, and so it's
Every generation's worried about something or someone stealing their jobs. Like back just when computers started coming out, our computers are going to steal our jobs, or factories are going to, automate and steal our jobs. It's like, or immigrants are going to steal. It's like, if that's not really how it works, the jobs don't disappear. They just get transferred somewhere else in the economy, and you need to follow the breadcrumbs. That's all that's happening.
so can you summarize your prescription for how to make a million, or how people can get stabbed? I know there's no one magic bullet, and I don't expect you to be like, here's the real secret, and then, here's the real magic room, Daryl. All this other stuff, like here, there's no magic room, is what I'm trying to say for the audience here. But can you try to break it down? I mean, we've already talked about it and repeated it a bunch of times. You need to have a target. You need to have a target, not just a person, like a demographic. You can describe them with demographics, but there has to be like a target situation or a target problem that you're out to
Yeah.
solve, right?
Yeah.
And that's your niche. And then you need to have a compelling offer, reason for them to do something, and not just do something, but do something now. And then the message would be the medium, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or a chat bot or messaging one-on-one on LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever that is. And we talked about how to try and scale it. That once you've got this process down, then you need to codify it. You need to create a systemized plan around it. And then you need to start scaling it either with software or by growing your team one person at a time.
Absolutely.
Would you build on this? And what else would you add to this plan?
What I would add to that plan is to not neglect the personal aspect of this process. It's this journey where you start to get a bit of success and it goes to your head, and you start to take your foot off the gas, and you kind of go all out, and you go buy luxury cars, and you go buy a $10,000 table at the nightclub, or you go and, either you go into this phase where you become overrun by that, goes to your head maybe, or maybe you get into addictions. Like whatever it is that's driving you now has to be sorted out. Your personal mental health, your personal kind of issues have to be developed alongside as your business skills, because you need to become the person who's worthy of your goal, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Like it's very Shakespearean. I feel like business is very Shakespearean, where in Shakespeare, the main characters always, suffered for their biggest flaw, the thing that they refuse to work on about themselves.
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
that's it in
That's
business,
well, absolutely.
and a lot of people are seeking liberation, and we all want the shiny carrot and the easy button. And, but it really comes back to what we've known for all the years, that it's about focus, like you said, projection, reflection, goal setting, analysis of what's going on, and having the time and collaborating with the right people. And what's your perspective on competition, especially in this day and age? Do people need to be more fierce with their competitors? Do you think they need to be more ruthless, or should they try to collaborate more? Do you think that I have some people that feel like they don't really ever have any competitors, that they can all coexist? Curious about your perspective on that in this world.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, you want to get into a space where there is no competition, there is no one offering what you're offering in the way that you're offering it. But if there is, then you need to work on building a moat. Warren Buffett talks about building a moat around your business that makes it increasingly more difficult to compete against you over time. You take Coca-Cola as an example. What is the moat? The moat isn't the way the product tastes; it's the distribution network that they've been able to develop, whereby you can go anywhere in the world and walk a few hundred meters anywhere on the planet and be able to buy Coca-Cola.
I can verify this, having been in rural Philippines, rural Vietnam, rural Africa.
Yeah.
It's a Coca-Cola.
And if I was to create a better tasting product than Coca-Cola and I enter the market, am I going to be able to compete? No, they don't have distribution, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what's the moat that's going to be around your business that it's going to be difficult for you to compete with? Create one of those.
And so that's where a good product with great, do you feel that you need great marketing and a good product? Do you think you need a great product and good marketing?
Yeah, a good product. Daryl, if BlackBerry came to you and said, "Hey, can you do some marketing, some email automation, some Facebook ads, some LinkedIn for us who want to sell 1 million BlackBerry phones?" What are you going to do, mate?
Well, it depends what model they're asking me to sell. It depends. Is this a new model? Is this comparable to what's already out there? Or or
Are you going to do it?
well, I don't know. Depends. It's a good question. Theoretically, I'm not going to sell their old phone, no, because it's not going to compete with anything that's new there. It's not good enough. So I guess
That's the point. That's the whole point. What
yeah,
they don't have a new phone. They got an old phone.
yeah. Well, then you need to find proper positioning. You
What are you
might
going to do?
be,
You're going to sell products?
pardon?
Why would you do that?
Well, that's why I say it really just depends. I'm sorry, we're talking hypotheticals. The old BlackBerry might work because it wouldn't work necessarily like in New York City. Everybody would want the new
Right.
iPhone, the new Samsung.
Right.
But if you were to sell the BlackBerry in a third world economy where people that maybe couldn't afford the new stuff, maybe there'd be potential there. But
Right.
that's where the target.
Well, I don't understand why somebody would even want to sell a bad product. I just don't. That's unfathomable to me that they would want to do that.
Right, right. Well, I guess I don't see BlackBerry as a bad product because it came from Canada, so I don't know. But yeah, it's dead. It's dead and gone. The reality is BlackBerry is not on the radar at all. So I get the point you're making, but maybe that's me trying to make the most of a good of an opportunity. It might work if you find some poor people in a third world country that can't afford the new stuff. You can sell some BlackBerry.
Right. Right.
So, what's the most effective or productive traffic activity right now that you're aware of? Is it Facebook? Is it remarketing? Is it Instagram ad?
Absolutely. Facebook, Instagram is where it's at. It's the largest platform and it's the largest amount of active users. It has the largest amount of data points than anything else by a long mile. Like what is there? There's number two is very far away from number one. So it's definitely the best
Some
platform.
people say Google and YouTube are major competitors.
Well, then have them on your podcast.
No, that's fine. No, I'm just trying to get your input on it. That's really it. But so I'm trying to think because I know that a lot of people are huge proponents of video marketing on Facebook and Instagram and then retargeting. So that's a big thing right now. What I've heard from others, do you agree with that? Would you propose something different? Is video ads the cat's meow right now? Would you front end video and then remarket? Like, what do you think is really like, yeah, for someone that's getting going, do they just need to do a newsfeed ad? I
Yeah.
mean,
So if someone's asking those questions, I think they're asking the wrong questions. I think that you need to really think about like your target and your offer and your message first, and then think about, am I going to do it as a video? Am I going to do it on Google? Am I going to do it on LinkedIn? Am I going to do it on Facebook? Like that's, people ask the wrong questions all the time. And I see it all the time. Like people, especially in those online free Facebook groups, they're always asking the wrong questions. And as a result, they get the wrong answer. But the question is more important than the answer. Always, always, always the question is more important than the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Because the properly phrased question is 80% of the answer anyhow.
Absolutely.
So really, it doesn't matter. If you've got the right target and you've got an offer that they want, you could be writing crayon on a napkin and they wouldn't give a crap. If I told you Beyonce was naked in a hotel room waiting for you to walk through that door, you wouldn't care if I wrote the phone number and hotel room address and crayon on a napkin. So I guess that's really it. Excellent. So now, Ben, we're approaching kind of the top of the hour. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I don't think so. I think you asked a lot of questions.
Mm. I did. Well, I mean, it's not every day you get here. For those again that don't know, Ben's got a very successful online agency. We already talked about doing over $1 billion in sales with Facebook. And I just love the simplicity. I mean, if you listen to this call, none of this is like you have to do this ninja gray hat technique right now. Like no, this is tried and tested. This will be relevant today. It'll be relevant next year. It'll be relevant 5, 10 years from now. Because it really just comes down to what drives and motivates people and what the end goal is. I think it's just super simple.
Yeah, relevant until we are overrun and overrun by AI robots that are herding us into fields.
It's quite the dystopian future. So, but hopefully we can stave that off. But this is
Yeah, no, too late.
so. As a final thought, what do you think holds most people back?
Themselves.
Themselves. And what held you back? How did you overcome it?
Nothing's ever held me back. Just do it. Just got to do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
So for those that have been listening that are really enjoying,
You don't want to do it. It doesn't matter if you don't like. You don't have to. You don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to have $10 million. Like that doesn't define your worth as a human being. Like that's this. We live in such a crazy materialistic, John Baudrillard French philosopher, he said that in a world we live in a world not void of meaning, but of too much meaning. So we're chasing, we're chasing the elusiveness of something that doesn't even matter.
Mm, yeah. I think that's been a huge eye opener for a lot of people, this stuff that's gone on. Like, especially because health is so important. And you talked about that as part of your routine, taking care of your health and meditating, taking care of your mental and physical health, and how that's such an important thing because you might have all these other priorities that are more important than going to the gym today. But I promise you, you get sick, everything else stops.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Keep your eyes on the priorities. So, but for people that are interested, then they want to know more information, where should they go?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. My handle is Benjamin Simkin. Hit me up, follow me,
Yep.
and
Yep.
Google me.
You can also
Google.
go to businessnet. What is it? Businessnet.com.au.
That is right, mate.
That's right. You got a freebie on there too, don't you? You got like a free course or something? What do we got?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Just Google me, look me up, hit me up on Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, no, you got the free consultation. So anyone that wants to have a free audit or a consultation, go head over to businessnet.com.au. Go search for Ben Simkin, Simkin. Hit him up on Instagram or Facebook. Reach out. Again, you may want to listen to this again if you can, just because there's so much here. Like, Ben, thank you so much for coming and sharing. I know you've got your own coaching group, you've got your own following, got your own places you can syndicate content. So appreciate you coming and sharing with everyone here. And for those that were listening, now you've been given the keys to the kingdom. It's time to go do something with them. So
Yeah, just do it.
just do it. Awesome. Ben, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I always enjoy our exchanges. I really value our friendship over these years. And thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Daryl.